So you've just given the sales presentation of your life. The people seem so with it and excited about what you're doing, and you get to the end and they say, gosh, we just can't afford this. Oh, how many times have I been in that situation? It took me forever. When I say forever, I mean like a decade to finally understand what that means. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So when I was a young salesperson in my 20s, I got objections all the time. We need to think about it, can't afford it, on and on and on and on. I'm sure you can probably relate. And I finally, it was probably 10 years into my sales career, the light bulb went off and I started finally understanding the difference between price and value. Now let me give you an example that I experienced recently. So we bought a house about 7 years ago, a total fixer-upper. It's an old house and it's needed a lot of renovations. And last year we renovated our kitchen, and our workman gave us a quote of $15,000 to have our kitchen renovated. And part of the quote, it was going to be $800 to paint the walls. And what's funny is that we went back to him and said, yeah, no problem. We'll pay the $15,000 to have the cabinets and the countertops and all that redone. But $800 for the paint, I mean, I can do that myself. I mean, I can hold a paintbrush. So we took the $800 off the line item and I just painted the walls myself. Now what's funny, you would think, okay, why would I spend $15,000 on the rest of the kitchen, but I'm not willing to pay $800 for the paint? It's because I can't fix the kitchen myself. I can't put in new cabinets. I can't do countertops. I have to pay somebody else to do that. So I see the value in that, but I don't see the value in paying somebody else $800 when I can do it myself. So at the end of the day, it's not about the price, it's about the value of what I'm paying for each of those services. Does that make sense? And so for many years, when I sat down with people, I was really pitching a product and a price. I really forgot a lot of the value until things finally changed for me. My very first sales career, when I was in college, I sold educational books door to door. Now, you could sell one book for $100, or you could sell the whole collection for like $800. And a lot of salespeople would go in, they were scared of overselling people or hearing the financial objection, so they would just go in with one book or two books and go like, yeah, I got 2 books for math, it's $200. And they hoped they didn't get a price objection because they were thinking of the price, the $200 or $200. Well, what I found out over time is that the families who saw the greatest value in what I was doing were the people with younger kids, like the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade families. Because in like 3rd and 4th grade, kids brought home homework every single day. In high school, a lot of kids didn't bring home homework, or they just kind of got lazy and blew it off. I found like in 3rd grade, parents are really involved with helping their kids with their homework, but like in the high school years, parents are like, they're on their own, I don't really help out anymore. And I also found the big value is that parents had no problem investing $800 in a set of resources that they could use for 7, 8, or 10 years. But if somebody had a junior in high school, they didn't see the value in spending $800 in something their child would maybe only use for 1 year. So my bread and butter became families with younger kids, because I made so many more sales to them because I really sold the value of your kids are going to use this every day, mom and dad can use this to help them with their homework, and they make a one-time investment they can use for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I mean, there was a tremendous value there. Versus if I sat down with somebody who had a junior in high school, it's like, well, Billy may or may not use this. Number 2, mom and dad are long gone, helping their kids with their homework. And Billy can only use this for maybe 2 years. I mean, it was tough to even sell a $100 package to somebody who had like a senior in high school. Does that make sense? So when all my colleagues were asking me, how are you selling so much? How are you selling these big packages? Who are you selling to? I said, I'm specifically looking for people with younger kids because there's such a tremendous value there. And no one ever really talked about that or never even thought about that. So I ask you, with whatever product or service you're selling, what is the value? What is the greatest value that your product offers people? And my next question is, are you really building up that value when you're sitting down with them? Or are you going in more with a product and a price without really finding what the need is, with that company or individual? Another thing is, it's so important to find the problem that you can solve with each person you sit down with. If you're pitching a bunch of great features, but the person you're sitting down with doesn't connect with those features, or they're not even relating to those features, they're not going to buy. They're not going to see the value, even if what you're doing is only $10. So the best way to create a value in a selling situation is, number one, ask a ton of detailed questions and have a sales conversation, not a sales talk. A sales talk where you just go in, oh, what I have is so great, and here's all the great features, and you're doing all the talking, kind of pitching them on something, instead of sitting down and saying, hey Bob, thanks so much for your time today. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, kind of see what your situation is, and just see if there's something I have that might help you solve some of those challenges that you're facing. And then ask a ton of detailed questions. And then if you have a product or service that kind of helps solve some of their problems, then share that with them. And then you'll create such a bigger value for that company or for that person than just going in, pitching a product, hoping that it'll stick. What's also interesting, and I used to always ask salespeople, okay, if I sat down with 100 people and I showed them the option of an $800 package or a $500 package, which one do you think 95% of them ended up buying? And everybody would say, probably the $500 one because it's cheaper. And that's actually wrong answer. 95% of the people I sat down with, they bought the $800 package, the more expensive one. Why? Because it was a better value. Because 10 books for $800 was a much better value than 4 or 5 books for $500. It's just like when you order pizza. You can get one pizza for $15, or you can get 2 pizzas for $20. Even though you may not be hungry enough for 2 pizzas, we always want to know what the value deal is, right? So as long as your higher price point has a higher value attached to it, don't be scared to show the bigger packages. So back to the objection you might commonly hear is, oh, we just can't afford it. What that really means is we don't see the value. And so I ask you to go back to the drawing board and ask yourself, are you really creating a value when you're sitting down with people? Are you showing them something that they really truly need? Or are you just pitching them kind of what you think you want to sell that day? Are you having a sales conversation versus a sales talk? And really getting to know these people. If you make those adjustments, I guarantee you will hear, I can't afford it, a lot less. Whoever your prospects are, whoever you call on, whether they're doctors, attorneys, IT specialists, housewives, whatever, there's always going to be a niche within your industry where those people see a much greater value than your other prospects do. Let me give you a couple of examples. I used to sell legal services, and back in the 90s, it was a big deal that all the legal database went online. And it was about $1,000 a month subscription for attorneys to be able to access all these different codes. And what I found is I was calling on just every Tom, Dick, and Harry, every attorney in town. But what I found is that the attorneys that saw the greatest value and they didn't blink an eye to invest $1,000 a month were the court attorneys, the trial attorneys. If they were like a transactional attorney and they didn't really use codes, they wouldn't even invest $100 a month in something like that. They just didn't see the value. So the niche within all the attorneys were the trial attorneys. And then I finally started calling on the trial attorneys because they saw such a greater value than anybody else did. Same thing when I sold cancer insurance. I found that if somebody had a family member that had been through cancer, they saw a much greater value in what I was doing than if somebody was like, oh, I don't know anybody who's had cancer, or no one in my family has had cancer. They just didn't have the emotional connection to what I was doing. They just didn't see the value. So that became a very important question that I would ask up front is, who's the closest person to you who's ever been through cancer? And if they said, oh, my sister, my mom, my best friend, okay, I knew they were going to see the value. value. But if they said, oh yeah, I don't know anybody, or I've never known anyone with cancer, or I don't believe in cancer, whatever, I would just say, well, I would just say, I'm showing a cancer policy, it's about $100 a month. Does that sound like something you want to take a look at? No. Okay, thanks, bye. I mean, I quickly got out of that because those people, I had about a 5% chance of selling those people. Does that make sense? So my next question to you is, what is the niche within your industry where those people see the greatest value in what you're doing? And I would make your day-to-day efforts and your referrals and all of that focused specifically on that niche. Okay, subscribe to my channel, stay in touch. Great talking to you guys, and I'll see you soon. Bye.